Hello. How is everybody? Welcome, family. It is the week after Thanksgiving. If you celebrated it, hopefully you got a day or two or longer off. I was off Wednesday through Friday and really enjoyed getting to spend some time with family and friends. Didn't enjoy the very long car trip with two little ones as much, but we survived and we made it there and back very safely. So very grateful for that opportunity. Um, yeah, so I hope everyone's doing great as we roll into December 2021. It's blowing my mind that we're there, but I guess that's pretty cliche. Everyone keeps saying, and it's true. Like, I'm still trying to process, March 2020, and here we are almost into 2022. So we're all going to make it through it together, though, right? Okay, so I wasn't sure what kind of topic I wanted to discuss today, and I thought the best way to come up with an idea is to talk about what things are going on in people's lives and what things I think can be helpful for other people. And for me right now, I wanted to talk about practicing operating from a place of abundance because first of all, I wanted to say in my very best Brene Brown attempts, and actually, to be honest, it took me a while to come down. I narrowed it down to two. So for those of you who are like, I roll Brene Brown, first of all, let's talk about that. But second of all, I narrowed it down to two quotes because it was very hard to come up with which ones I want, especially with vulnerability. I think she is the master. So the first one, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. And that is huge for me. And then the other, courage, starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. And so for me, I wanted to start this conversation about abundance with vulnerability because for me, I know most of you listening should know that I started this podcast right after I started my full-time private practice. I gave up my full-time agency job with a steady paycheck so that I could build a private practice, which I just really missed being a clinician, and I really missed being able to do therapy and getting to work one-on-one or in couples or even with families, as the cases may be. And so I was excited to have the opportunity to do some leadership roles as directors in my last two roles, but now I'm gonna do the full-time clinician, and I've been doing that since the beginning of October. And obviously Rome wasn't if any Gilmore Girls fans out there, Rome by the B-52s wasn't written in a day. And I know that. So, but especially with Christmas coming and all these gifts that we have to buy, the cash is not flowing in like it was. Not that I'm a social worker, it was never flowing in, but a standard basic paycheck every 2 weeks was nice. And that's not my situation right now. And so I honestly haven't had very many calls about starting with individual therapy. And as much as I try to not focus from a place of scarcity and know that, again, things don't happen overnight, I kind of expected to have a little bit more traction by this point, and I don't. So I thought, why not be vulnerable and talk to the family about that? Let you all hear what's going on with me out here in Kansas. So I think that first one quote really spoke to me about showing up when you can't control the outcome. And obviously I should have Googled what the quote is about. Luck is when preparation and hard work meet or something like that. I don't know. You get it though. So it is showing up and putting in the effort, but at the end of the day, I really can't control what happens and who sends me an email to schedule or my phone ringing. So I know I've talked to a number of professionals who have their flourishing private practices, and they always talk about operating from a place of abundance. That it's important to focus on that there are plenty of people who are looking for help, that want help, having confidence in myself as a clinician, and that's certainly not the problem there. But yeah, so anyway, so that's what I wanted to talk about today. That's how I was like feeling kind of down about not having a lot of phone calls or emails coming in. And I thought, why not talk about abundance and talk about developing an abundance mindset and what does that look like? So the first thing that I wanted to do, and I actually found, obviously I already told you that my quotes are from Brene Brown. I've looked at a number of places, Chopra.com. I actually found a really great place, a really great article on Forbes. Also Lucemi Consulting over in the UK. A number of really great articles that I kind of found an amalgam to discuss today, because everyone's got like 5 steps, 7 steps, 10 steps to developing an abundance mindset. And so obviously there are no really specific right ways to do it. But so I wanted to kind of pull up a couple. So the first thing I wanted to do was kind of define the difference between scarcity and abundance. So abundance, you are in charge. You're in the driver's seat. You're moving forward. You're doing the legwork to get yourself to that place. Whereas with scarcity, it's almost like being kind of in that victim mentality. Things happen to you or don't happen to you. In my situation, right? Like things aren't coming into me. So, and I'm just a victim or being bullied or, whatever it might be. Yeah. So that's kind of your viewpoint there. One of the things that the Chopra.com article mentioned was your physical energy, right? So abundance comes with a place of relaxation and alertness, an expansive posture, feeling balanced, feeling rooted, grounded, present. I know we talk about with grounding techniques, we also talk about deep breathing, versus obviously with scarcity, looking at tension, jaw tension, have you ever clenched your fists, right? Shorter breaths, more jagged breaths, even tense shoulders, tenseness, lower back pain, that kind of thing. Because as you're feeling more stressed out, those are the kind of physical responses you get. Emotionally, obviously, the goal with abundance, feeling empowered, feeling engaged, optimism, not toxic optimism, which I think I should probably do a podcast on toxic optimism. I'm going to write myself a note right now to do that, because I think that in and of itself deserves a full podcast, but optimistic, positive, working towards a goal, putting in the energy, feeling energized, getting inspiration from others. I think that's a good thing about the abundance too, is that sometimes it's been really great for me, and I'm going to be a little tangential and I'll talk about this throughout, but I've been really blessed to have a lot of really great experiences with a lot of different professionals in the decade plus that I've been doing social work. And then of course, even before that, in my previous life with my degree, with my business degree, people I'm still able to count on to have discussions with for suggestions or help or just to key. And so that's been really great to be inspired by other people. And it's been really interesting to see the people who operate from an abundance practice. I mean, for example, a lot of people that I speak to are licensed in the same field, in the same states that I am. And they're not like, well, I'm not going to help you, because a client who goes to you is a client who doesn't come to me, which, technically it is a zero-sum game there, where if your client is with me, then they're not going to go to you. But the idea that there are plenty of clients out there to be able to serve, because we're continuing to decrease the stigma of mental health. And so more and more people are saying like, hey, I might be able to benefit from being able to talk to somebody. And so that's been a real inspiration to me, to see the people versus the people who are like, I don't have time to talk to you, or no thanks, or just don't even respond at all. And they're obviously operating more from a place of scarcity. When they have that kind of impatient, like, what do you want from me? What? Even like I said, some anger, like some people have given me kind of that sort of sass, like, I don't have time for that. I'm like, okay, well, I just thought I'd ask. I see you're doing really well. But then of course your own energy, talking about draining the energy in the room with your interactions. I try really hard to not be too negative Nancy, and making sure that I'm keeping an open mind about things in life. And that can be very helpful. I know, there's people who, are just kind of frustrated and overwhelmed and feel powerless and helpless in this situation. So it's more helpful to be just, empowered and engaged and looking forward to the things that you can work on. And then of course your mental energy, right? So as you're feeling abundant, feeling clarity, right? Not having having abstract thinking, right? Many possible alternative solutions to things. There is not just one thing, multiple angles you can listen to. Active listening with other people, being flexible, being adaptable, very helpful. I have the choice to do something, working with creativity, working with a non-judgmental, and I'll talk a little bit more about the beginner's mind as well, right? So obviously to start at something, you have to start somewhere. And a lot of times when you start somewhere, you're not very good at it. Like if you were to pick up the guitar tomorrow, would you be any good at it? But if you practiced every day for 20 minutes, how good would you be in a year, right? So the beginner's mind of wanting to be open-minded to trying something new, versus scarcity comes from a place of not having a choice, having a rigid thought patterns, concrete thinking. There's only one way to get it done, and if it's not working, then it's just not going to work. Feeling kind of disorganized, that sort of thing. So I thought that was really helpful to first just kind of define the situation, talking about abundance versus scarcity. And then from there, figuring out the ways to develop that. So one of the things that I thought, and I talk about gratitude a lot, is the gratitude piece, is figuring out, like, one thing that I've committed myself today is that I'm going to start talking about 3 things every single day. I have a little space in my planner. I have a pen and paper planner, talking about, actually that's skipping ahead a little bit, but talking about kind of the vision that you have for something. I have a pen and paper planner because if I write down the openings of places, it's kind of putting it out in the universe of like, these are the places that I'm going to fill. So I have my pen and paper, I'm writing it down. So today's topics for me specifically were for gratitude, where I'm grateful that I have an education and the opportunity to have the privilege to be educated, to get the experience that I have, to have the licensure that I have to be able to do this work. My proactivity, I'm typically a pretty proactive person, is pretty crazy. I'm excited to announce that I'm going to be a professor, an adjunct professor over at Kansas, over at KU, in the Lawrence campus for their School of Social Welfare. And I had reached out when I first moved here, actually it was back in June of 2020, and I just went through and scrolled and found those emails, and I reached out again to somebody and was like, I'd really love an opportunity to teach. I'd love to chat with somebody. How can I beef up my resume? What are you looking for? And that was not last week, but the week before. I think it was like Thursday that I had this conversation. We scheduled the interview for Tuesday. I got the offer Tuesday. I accepted Wednesday. And it's happening in spring semester 2022. So I'm grateful that I was like, hey, the automatic thought of, let me just reach out and see what's going on. And then I was proactive in going for what I wanted. I've had so many, not directly no's, but I think it's a no when you put out an application and you never hear back. No, all these years. And now things all aligned. And then I'm grateful for having the skills that I have with communication, right? So I'm able to communicate my needs. Sometimes I ramble in this podcast and you're like, no, Meg, you're not a good communicator. But yeah, so my communication skills, being able to articulate what I want to say, to be able to express what I need, and being able to work with other people in those kind of ways. So those are the 3 things that I wrote down today specifically, and I aim to do that every day now. I'm going to wake up with 3 new things to be grateful for, because when you focus on abundance, you appreciate what you have, not being envious of other people, because that comes from a scarcity place, right? Surrounding yourself with people who have that abundance mentality. Again, like I said, I've reached out to a number of people, and I am going to kind of bring it back to me feeling like specifically my place, but I'm hoping that you're able to relate this into a space of your own, right? So like, a lot of you aren't trying to build a private mental health practice, right? So that's not relatable, but I know there are other things in your life that you're trying to build and trying to work on. So surrounding yourself with people who have that abundance, right? And like I said, I've had people who have been like, what? No, I don't have time for that, or just didn't answer at all. And I've got some people who are like, yes, I've got this opening this day and that day. Let me set up a Zoom. Let's call, let's chat, let's have coffee, which a lot of people are in Texas. So I'm like, I'm in Kansas, remember, so I can't. But, right? And so it's wonderful, like the goal to seek out committed, self-aware people who will be trying to be optimistic and positive, again, not toxically positive and optimistic, but trying to cheer me on so that I can be more confident. That's the same way that I try to interact with other people when I have people who are looking for something that they think I can help with, is trying to have that abundance and that abundance mentality. So the next one is the vision piece, and this is what I kind of alluded to earlier with my planner, is that it's like a whiteboard. Have you ever heard somebody? I know I listened to a Scrubs podcast with Zach Braff and Donald Faison, which I love. And they all talk about how they have whiteboards. So they write like, nominated for an Emmy, and be in a Marvel movie. I know Donald Faison's obsessed with Marvel and Star Wars and stuff. He wants to be in a Star Wars movie, and like it's on his whiteboard and trying to make those connections of things. And it's kind of like when you can see, like I have a Post-it. I don't have a whiteboard up, but I have a Post-it about how many clients I want and what that looks like. And I see that all day, every day. Like that's what my goal is. And then also in my planner, I have written out like these are the spaces open that I have that I want to fill with private clients in my perinatal mental health therapy business. And so that is really helpful. So focusing on the vision of what you want in the future, setting those goals, having that direction, having that purpose, that helps build your confidence to move forward. And then also to the excitement of like, these are the things that I want to get done. Focusing on strengths is another really important thing. Instead of trying to, we certainly don't want to ignore areas of growth, certainly, but focusing on your big capabilities. What are the things that you have that are unique, that are your strengths? thinking about how your thoughts and actions impact other people, right? That can help grow your sense of abundance. Making sure that you're building on those places of abundance, right? That that's what you're doing to say, like, I'm going on that, and going forward in those areas that are very important to me, versus just focusing on where I'm struggling. I think that's very helpful for everybody. Doing more of what you love is another really great one. Talking about spending time with what you do. Like, I really enjoy doing this podcast. So for me, it was really fun to sit down and go through different articles. And it was fun for me to be a nerd and geek out over Brene Brown and be like, ooh, which one of her many, many vulnerability quotes can I use? And having to narrow it down to two. But it was fun because all of this things like, yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while. I haven't thought about that in a while. But I enjoyed that, and it helped my brain move in positive ways that got my energy going and my motivation in a positive direction. So spending time doing what you love helps you to create bigger space for bigger opportunity. And then, like I said too, just that happiness, that energy, that positivity that is, helpful in moving forward, in that space of abundance and progress. And then, of course, obviously celebrating the achievements that you do have. So I do get very excited when an email comes through from somebody saying that they're looking to schedule a new client. I can't do therapy without clients, right? Again, bringing it back to that. So even the small little things, like one person, that's a great place to start. Absolutely. So the next thing I was talking about was just kind of going back to what we talked about, the difference between abundance and scarcity. Building abundance, eliminating scarcity. So focusing on the what there is. Commit to eliminating that scarcity thought. Commit to, we all have automatic negative thoughts. We call them ants, right? Automatic negative thoughts, they're automatic. The definition of automatic means you're not controlling them. So not, first of all, beating yourself up when you do have those automatic negative thoughts is key. And then instead of dwelling on the negative thought that came in, saying, like, I'm redirecting I'm aware of what's happening, I'm redirecting it, and I'm turning it into something else. I'm moving on. And even in that situation, kind of flopping that and saying, like, I had this automatic negative thought. What's the opposite of that? So this is the scarcity that's come in. What's the abundance viewpoint that I can look at that way? I think that's very helpful. That self-awareness piece keeps coming up in all of these articles that I've seen, is talking about being a self-aware person, focused on your personal growth, looking for the ways of expressing your feelings of abundance, growing those feelings of abundance, are just so very helpful. One of the articles that I found on Forbes.com was talking about creating win-win situations. So again, the difference between scarcity and abundance. With scarcity, the mindset there is that if one person wins, then another person loses, right? And so instead of focusing on it that way, instead of that zero-sum game, which I don't know, quick tangent if anybody's a fan of The Office, but of course, anytime I hear win-win now, I think win-win-win. And whereas me as the mediator can also have a win because I feel good about it anyway. So, and if you don't, you're like, no, Meg, I don't care about off-ramps references, then, well, here we are. Anyway, so trying to create more win-win conditions in your life, fighting against that negativity, that zero-sum mindset, looking for ways for everybody to leave with some sort of a sense of accomplishment, feeling better about your relationships with other people, participating in assisting mentorship, all of that sort of thing is very helpful. So one of the things also that talks about is just being non-judgmental. And I think that's really hard too for a lot of people, is when we have these goals and they don't happen overnight, which a lot of us are very aware that they weren't meant to happen overnight, and that's not how it works, is to figure out a way to look at it that from that perspective, and being non-judgmental, right? And we talk about that not just with an abundance about specific things, but just generally, is that I should, my second field placement advisor, I call them Rachelisms. Her name was Rachel, and I think she genuinely hung the moon when it comes to being a therapist. I've met other fantastic therapists along the way, but I've not met a better one. And it was such a blessing to be able to sit in with her for 2 semesters and just watch her in group therapy. I literally would write down, had a notebook of Rachelisms, of things that just came out of her mouth, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so inspired, that's so brilliant, that's so genius, what a duh, but like I hadn't thought of that before. And one of the things that I learned from her was, don't shut on yourself. And it's that should, right? So we have these automatic negative thoughts. I shouldn't think that way. Well, sure, we don't want to think that way, but then judging yourself for having that negative thought digs you deeper into that negativity. So being judgment-free and working on being judgment-free is very helpful as well, and saying like, okay, well, this is where I am, and I'm gonna ride these emotions or have these thoughts like a wave, and I'm gonna bring them in as they come, and I'm gonna watch them leave again. And I think that's very important. So listening without judgment, operating internally without being judgmental is so very helpful, and helps with building creativity and whatnot. So I think those are the very important things to work on. Talking about the next thing, right? So how do we express this? Talking about, again, gratitude. The sky is the limit, right? Again, figuring out what your passions are, figuring out what your purpose is, what your goals are, what gets you jazzed. I actually, in one of my supervisions, I work with someone who's a director as one of my supervisees, and we were talking about some people just kind of coming in and phoning it in. And it's been a lot. It's a lot for all of us. The pandemic has been really tough. It's been very difficult to just function daily sometimes. And I know that's kind of a negative way to look at it, but it's a lot. And I think we all have definitely earned the right to be where we are. But the goal also too is figuring out what gets you jazzed, what gets you excited. So when you're a therapist in a group and you come in and you just constantly putting on videos for people, is that really your best work? I know that's where your energy level is, but again, it's thinking, bring it back then, right? Like if that's where your energy level is, what is it that does get you excited and motivated, right? So this is a very specific therapy example, but generally too in your own place of work and business, is it for me, it was like, well, I've got binders upon binders upon binders of psychoeducation activities. What are some of my favorite ones that I could do with somebody? What are some different things, if talk therapy isn't working, activity planning, right, is another option, or expressive arts. I'm not a registered art therapist, so I call it expressive arts, but we certainly do art activities. When you're starting to feel burned out, remember what it is that gets you jazzed. That's the word I use, jazzed. What gets you excited? And I think that's kind of bringing that together is very helpful. Working towards becoming a master at something. So we're operating from a place of a beginner's mindset and being okay with being bad. And that's one thing I think, another personal experience of mine, is that I used to be pretty good at playing the piano. And then I went to college and definitely didn't play like I used to play. And then obviously have continued to play less and less and less. And for me, it's like, well, I want to play, but I know I'm not going to be good. So I don't want to play because I don't want to be bad, but I can't get better if I don't practice. So how am I going to get better? Right? So I have to be willing to not expect to be senior in high school 2003 Meg at the piano. I have to expect to be, not a beginner, but certainly not where I was at my best times, right? The same thing with where I'm an actual beginner would be, for example, my husband loves to play Call of Duty, and I'm terrible at it. It's so bad. It's so bad. And I would love to sit and play with him because he loves it, and he plays with his guy friends and stuff. So obviously I don't want to crash their times, but just like a random, evening after the kids have gone to bed, it would be so much fun. I know he would love any excuse to get to play. And I've tried to play with him before, but I'm so bad, which is weird because in undergrad I was like pretty good at Halo. Like not great, but like I had fun. I was good and I could do things. And so I was like, oh, I can play Call of Duty. I'm bad. I'm inverted, which is weird. And anyway, I'm off on a tangent about Call of Duty, but it's one of those things where I'm like so bad. It's hard for me to get to a beginner's headspace of like, it's okay to be bad, but I'm so bad that I don't want to play. So then I can't get better because I'm not practicing. So that continues to be a goal of mine. Something not related to work, not, just something for fun and a little less hopeful stress. But that, again, like me playing the piano or me wanting to play Call of Duty, being okay with not being excellent at something is okay. And that takes practice too. So working on trying to build that mastery experience. Another option that we talked about too is choosing your words wisely. How we speak to each other is very important. How we speak to ourselves is very important. One of my supervisees does functional family therapy, which is an evidence-based family, obviously, practice. And one of their techniques that I have been practicing, because clearly I have no problem chit-chatting away, one of their activities that they do is you have 10 words to get out what you want. 10 words. Because otherwise sometimes, especially when we're in the heat of the moment, when we're arguing with family, whatever it might be, we're rambling. We're on and on and on. We're circular thing. Everything's going again. And I've already said that. And and it's just, I'm just perseverating, right? You have 10 words. So pick them wisely. And I think that's something that's very helpful for me when I find myself feeling flustered, is like, okay, what am I trying to say? Let's come to a point. Let's be specific. What do we want to do? And then being able to just go beyond that, and then what's next. So that's my goal. Like I said, I appreciate everyone allowing me this topic from a place of vulnerability. I've peppered in my own personal experiences from this, my private practice space. Also, Call of Duty has nothing to do with being a mental health therapist, but I shouldn't say nothing. I'm sure somebody somewhere is like, wait, Meg, let me tell you how I can relate that. But yeah, so thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable and sharing where I am right now. I appreciate everyone who's come along this journey with me. I hope to be able to continue to grow on the discussion of abundance versus scarcity, and I hope that you're able to learn something from that and take something and put it into your own life. So again, hoping to hear from some of our amazing guests we have coming up about entrepreneurship, about nutrition, about work-life balance. I've got a number of other people who are interested in coming on. It's going to be really great. So stay along for the ride. Please listen in. Watch on YouTube if you are, or listen on the podcast. I appreciate every single one of you in the family, and let's make it a great week, especially a great week post-holiday. Sometimes those are a little more difficult, so let's go.